Hi friends, here are the 5 best schematics in Modern Warfare 3 Zombies and how you can get your hands on them. The first has got to be the legendary Aether tool. The main reason I've got this one on the list is because it allows you to turn your custom insurance weapon into overpowered loadouts that in most cases are better than any wonder weapon, except for maybe the VR11. The other valuable aspect of the legendary Aether tool schematic is that without it, you'd otherwise have to just grind loads of contracts to try and get it, because there's no way to buy it in the game. The reality is though, even if you're grinding contracts, you'll find the drop rates of these legendary Aether tools are quite low. So essentially it means if you don't have the schematic, there's a good chance you might not even be able to find the legendary Aether tool in the game. The other benefit to the legendary Aether tool schematic is that it only has a 1-day cooldown on crafting, which is way better than any wonder weapon because they've all got at least a 3-day cooldown, meaning you can build up a lot more of these legendary Aether tools, and that can give you a powerful weapon every single game rather than potentially just having one wonder weapon ready. Now, the way to get your hands on the legendary Aether tool schematic is through defeating the Red Worm boss. To get to the Red Worm boss, here are the steps that you need to take. Head to the top left or the top right of the map, that's C1 or H2. Both of these locations will be on the second floor of these specific buildings. Either of these rooms will have 4 small pictures which you should be able to see, and those 4 pictures signify the location of USB devices. There'll be 4 to collect in total, hence the 4 small pictures. By the way, you don't need to go to both of these locations, either C1 or H1, but not both. Now you need to travel to each of the 4 locations you can see in the picture to obtain that USB drive I mentioned. You do this by interacting with this machine you can see right here in each of those 4 locations. It will take a moment for you, you'll do some typing, and then eventually it will spit out a USB stick on the floor, which you'll need to pick up. One thing to note is that these machines do need line of sight to the open sky, so that means they should be quite easy for you to find. They'll either be outside of the building, or they'll be something like on a roof, or some open space with a clear line of sight to the sky. Now instead of you having to work out where each of the map pictures are, I'm actually just going to put a link in the description for you with a link to gamewith.net because they found all 12 locations and they show you quite specifically where to find each of them. One other thing that might be useful for you to know is that one of the USBs typically always seems to spawn in the red zone, so I tend to leave that one till last, so I recommend you do the same. Now once you've got the 4 USBs, you need to take them to find the reactors, which you'll then have to put those USBs into. Again, thanks to gamewith.net, I can show you this map right here, and this shows you the 4 locations of the reactors. Now how do you know which one to pick? Well, it's actually quite simple. Find where that purple zone is. Once you see that purple zone, now typically whichever one of these 4 is closest to where that purple zone is, those are the reactors you'll need to use. But to just be doubly sure, if you zoom in close, you should see 2 ammo crates where you can restock your ammo very close together, way closer than they normally are. And that's the exact indicator of where you need to be, because when you get there you should see those reactors that you'll need to use. Now you won't be able to use them straight away if the zone hasn't engulfed them. You're going to have to wait for that purple zone to expand. Once it covers all 4 reactors, that's when you can put your USB drive in. As soon as you've done that, you'll have to wait a few moments, and it won't be instant, but the red worm will appear. Do make sure you're prepared though. Everyone's saying this is one of the hardest bosses we've had in Zombies, and to be honest, from my experience having done it 3 or 4 times now, I'd have to agree. So the trick is just deal as much damage as you can by focusing on the crystals on its neck, as you would do with these normal worm bosses. And when he releases the purple wisps, just make sure you focus on killing them first. It's okay to stop shooting the worm just for a moment if you're focusing on those purple wisps. It's really worth it, because otherwise you will go down to them. And apart from that, it's really just about team shooting the worm as much as you can. Also, keep an eye on the time. Remember, you've got 15 minutes before the game ends, and because you're in the zone, your gas masks will start to take damage, and when it gets to about 2 bars, run up to the ammo resupply and just resupply your ammo, and you'll notice it will then resupply your gas mask as well. Now once you've defeated that red worm boss, open the reward rift, and that guarantees you one of 3 schematics, one of which is going to be the legendary Aether tool. So that's one of the top 5 schematics and how you can get it. Let's look at the next useful schematic that you'll want to get your hands on in Modern Warfare 3 Zombies. And this is the flawless Aetherium crystal. This one's essentially going to save you 30,000 in essence and probably about 20 to 30 minutes of contract grinding each game, because this schematic allows you to craft a level 3 pack-a-punch crystal that you can use on any weapon, including wonder weapons. Obviously this one's quite obvious in terms of how you get it without crafting. You can just use the Pack-a-Punch machine, but the reason it's useful to go in with a crystal is because it's going to save you so much time. And having this crystal ready loading into the game means you can use any essence you earn from contracts to buy yourself perks you need, or even go to the store and stock up on self-revives or juggernauts, or even those black hole grenade Casimirs. There is one other way you might not know about in terms of how to get this crystal in the game, and that is simply to take out a Mega Abomination in tier 3. Obviously that method is not guaranteed, but there are on a fair few occasions where I've defeated a Mega Abomination and they have dropped me a level 3 Pack-a-Punch crystal. In terms of how to get this level 3 Pack-a-Punch crystal, it's actually the same as the legendary Aether tool. You just need to defeat the Red Worm boss, and this is one of the other schematics you can get from the Red Worm boss. Next up is the golden armor plates as the third most useful schematic to have in Modern Warfare 3. Now I've put this one here because it's a bit of a lifesaver. If you want to go into the tier 4 Dark Aether or even the tier 5 Dark Aether using the Elder Sigil, golden armor plates are really seriously going to help you out. Some might even say you really do need golden armor plates if you are going into that Elder Sigil Dark Aether. And obviously the benefit of the golden armor plates are that you don't really need to stack up or carry too many armor plates because it will guarantee you the replenishment of your 3 armor plate vest. And that's really useful if you are, for example, in that Elder Sigil and you're getting hit by zombies quite a lot. In terms of how to get these golden armor plates, there's 2 ways to get them. You can either get them by doing the tier 4 Dark Aether, which is the standard Sigil Dark Aether, but that won't give you the schematic, that will just give you golden armor plates that you can use. However, if you want the schematics, you'll need to go into the tier 5 Dark Aether, that's using the Elder Sigil, and you'll need to complete one of the 3 contracts. Now there are a couple of other items you can get from those which actually are later on in this list, but what that means is you might need to do multiple of the contracts in the tier 5 Dark Aether to be able to get the golden armor plate schematic, or the golden armor plate plans as it's known as. Honestly, it's going to be quite hard in the tier 5 Dark Aether, and to get that Elder Sigil you will have to complete tier 4 Dark Aether contracts as well. Another trick could be to ask in the game chat if anyone's going into the Dark Aether, that's the tier 5 Dark Aether, and you can ask them if they've got an Elder Sigil already. If they have, you can see if you can tag along, just like I did in this game where I joined another squad who already had an Elder Sigil and they got me into the tier 5 Dark Aether. In terms of which contracts you want to be doing, there isn't a specific contract that guarantees you to get the golden armor plates, so you'll just need to give the different contracts a go. Obviously the escort contract is going to be the hardest one, so you probably want to focus on doing the Aether extractor or the holdout contracts first because they're a lot easier. You can check out our video on how to get into the Dark Aether, which I'll link to after this video, just to help you out if you want a bit more information on how to get those sigils. Number 4, I'm actually going to say the Scorcher Wonder Weapon schematic. I know you might be thinking it's not the best wonder weapon damage wise. The VR11 I think is technically the best wonder weapon at the moment, but they haven't released the schematic for that. And that's the reason why I think the Scorcher Wonder Weapon schematic right now is probably the 4th most useful schematic, because it allows you to get around the map so quickly. You can jump between zones really fast, you can get past big hordes of zombies without taking damage, and in the Dark Aether is probably the most useful movement tool you can take in, and that's mainly because it allows you to jump to those really tall towers with ease, and that means you can do things like the Aether extractor contract super fast. Also, aside from the schematic, there isn't really another guaranteed way to find the Scorcher Wonder Weapon. You can try and find the keys in the Dark Aether, or you can get lucky finding a case from a contract, or in one of the random loot crates, or maybe from killing the worm boss, but none of these are guaranteed to give you a Scorcher Wonder Weapon. And that's kind of what makes this schematic really useful. It's rare, but it really helps you in the game with your movement, and getting around much faster as well. Finally, in 5th place, I'm going to say the Aether Blade schematic. I almost said the dog bone here because having a dog is super useful. It revives you, it distracts enemies and it fights off enemies, and it's super useful. However, it's really easy to get a dog in the game because all you need is flesh, and flesh is really easy. So all you've got to do is get enough flesh, which is normally 3 or 4 pieces, get to the tier 3 dog house, and you've easily got yourself a tier 3 dog, meaning grinding to get this schematic, or even using up space in your backpack, isn't necessarily that worth it, compared to the Aether Blade schematic, which essentially, if you don't have the schematic, or you're not picking up a case from the tier 4 Dark Aether, you're not going to be able to get the Aether Blade anywhere else, and therefore, the Aether Blade schematic becomes quite useful. On top of that, the Aether Blade itself is very good. Even in the hardest Dark Aether, that Elder Sigil Dark Aether, The Aether Blade pretty much one-hits all the enemies that it hits, and yes, it's true you need to wait a few seconds for it to come back available for you to use again, but at least it's unlimited. You don't need to keep going to the ammo resupply to restock, or pick up drops off zombies to get your lethal back. The way to get this is, again, exactly the same as the golden armor plates. You'll need to complete a tier 5 contract, because the tier 5 contracts guarantee you one of the 3 classified schematics. So hopefully this helps you focus your schematic grind. I recommend just crafting and stashing these things when you can. So if you've unlocked the schematics and you've got space in your backpack or your stash, just get them crafted and let them sit there for next time you need them. Hopefully this helps. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you later.